dream team, building futures, that's our theme. Key Tech Talks will show the way, with Key Global, spread your wings.
Welcome, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another Key Tech Talks with Lauren Halket, the founder of Key Global Recruitment. And today our special guest is Michelle Coombs of the Tech Leader Network, a lady who says that 90% of the people she deals with are neurodiverse anyway. In fact, she even stated to me very recently she doesn't even know what neurotypical looks like. But anyway, moving straight across, Lauren, welcome.
Thank you very much, Gareth. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Michelle. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
You're welcome.
As part of our, exciting journey here within Key Tech Talks, a relatively new, well, in fact, no, not really, podcast. We're on a few episodes now, so thank you for joining us on this exciting journey. So I'll just dive straight in, Michelle, if it's okay with you.
Very possible.
Being neurodiverse, myself, ADHD and whatnot, very impatient people. So I'll dive in with the first question, and that is, in your experience, where do MSPs most often go wrong when it comes to managing their neurodiverse people and teams?
I could talk from my own experience on this one, actually, Lauren. I've been thinking about this one a little bit, and
okay.
I'm not a people or I wasn't a people person. Let's put it that way. I don't know if I really want to admit to this on a podcast, but I wasn't a people person. So I had to learn to go and be human, and understand what makes people tick and all of that kind of thing. But I think we play lip service a lot to people, process, and technology. And then when it comes to the development of our staff and our teams, we would heavily invest in tech training, followed by process training. But we do very, very little in the way of actual people and soft skills kind of training to help us be better people and humans overall. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. Could I say, kind of coming back to you, let me know if I'm making sense in my reply. So yeah, I think, for me, neurodiverse, when it comes to technology, it's just assisting us, isn't it? It's getting better, and it's there to help us. What I find for neurodiverse people and teams that can be challenging is, putting a process together for, a particular, strategy or whatever that may be. So it's the technology, it's all innovation, it's all creative, it's all big thinking. That bit really, really excites me. But it's these things, such as, where from the thinking then to executing it. It's having that all managed and organized, and it's building those processes that I think, neurodiverse people just, find it really, really difficult, because it's heavy, it's heavy information. And I've talked about a lot in my episodes, and, I kind of stand by it, is, I have to, it's breaking things down into sizable chunks.
Yeah, manageable steps.
Yeah, manageable steps. And then, I think that is more, neurodiverse friendly. It's just being, for me, it's about, investing in your people, that side that you said about being human, sitting down and saying, okay, does this process work? Yes, no, do we need to make any changes? And it's because every neurodiverse person doesn't take things in the same, Michelle, do they?
So no, they do not.
No, absolutely not. It is not one size fits all. Absolutely bloody not. So I think, neurodiverse people, you know, it's process, it's routine. We all need that to feel, you know, to feel safe.
Yeah, so it's one of the, what is it? Who was it that said about the neurological safety? I've forgotten the guy's name, but they all need that safety and knowing what needs to be done. But don't forget there are those that thrive in the chaos as well, that can't follow routine. So you have the flip side of that just throw everything out and just fix stuff left, right, and centre because they don't follow the process and they go and experiment. So we need those kind of thinkers as well.
Those kind of things. Yeah. I can, you know, I can vouch for that sometimes. I do get that bit. I do get that bit quite a lot because I can probably reference that. My PAs can probably can high five me on that, because when it's really, strangely, when it's very, very chaotic and there's loads and loads of things going on, that's where I feel
drive,
drive, excitement. And then from that chaos is where I want to build innovation, and my creative thinking comes into place. And then I think it's, you know, it's that where I like to then create, okay, let's, you know, that it's that great thinking that comes from the chaos. And then you think, right, okay, let's put that plan in place. So for me, it gives me plans, and yes, it gives me processes, but then after that is when I need somebody to, you know, to kind of help execute that.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you on that one. And again, I was thinking about this as you was talking, because that's what we do, right? Is we always think about those things, how it interlinks and all the rest. So I was that it's all those different mindsets and the different way that people think. It's about bringing it back to the question in where we go wrong in managing people. It's not just about saying you do this, you do that, but it's understanding the strengths and weaknesses of each individual. I don't think we take enough time to get to know people on a human level enough, and what makes them tick and how they best operate and what motivates them well. So I think bringing it back to the question, if we can identify those different types of thinkers and the roles that are suitable to them and how we can best develop them in that role, I think that would be a key thing that we need to look at.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also what is really, I agree with all of that, you know, that human interaction, that sitting down with somebody, looking them in the eye, you know, what works for you, because obviously the next person that I meet, you know, what's going to work for them isn't going to work for you, essentially. And it's that investment in, you know, in those more face-to-face meetings, and, you know, don't make it really formal, make it informal, you know, make it comfortable so that they feel that they can, you know, come out and be comfortable and confident in what they're saying. So I think it needs, I think there has to be, you know, almost like a setting, you know, and different spaces. I think spaces is a key one.
Yeah.
And the settings within that space, you know, because it's, I know it sounds crazy, but, you know, a little bit of, you know, artificial plants, a little swing. I know that, you know, you might not go, you know.
I love bean bags, so put bean bags in the corner.
Exactly, bean bags, you know, Nintendo Switch in the corner. You know, just little things like that can really, really help somebody come out and, you know, express what they need within their, you know, within their role and how they like to be managed.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really key. And another one for me that I mean, obviously I'm really passionate, you know, about people, having my own recruitment company, and where people go, and, you know, and all of that good stuff. But I'm always, you know, I'm always wanting to invest in my process and be the best at what I can be, and give good value to clients. You know, from, you know, when we're looking at people, you know, when we're building our talent pools, we've got to make sure that, you know, we're as sharp as a button. And I think another thing as well that you could do on top of what we just said, you know, be more human, settings, spaces, make it comfy, bean bag switches, you know, loads of different things. But before that, I think what would be really good is, and I know that, it's nothing new. I'm not talking about anything new here. It's been developing for years, but behavioural assessments, multi-layers of assessments, before you start to interview your talent for your clients, because I think it's really, really important. And the behavioural side, I think, finding out who that real person is. So the traits that they carry in their personal life, what they do outside of work, their hobbies, tells you a lot about a person, a hell of a lot.
Yeah, because wherever it plays out in one area, it plays out in another. So for me, for example, when I was recruiting, I wouldn't always necessarily have behavioural assessments in place, but there are certain questions that you can ask to understand how somebody operates. So for me, I like to be able to know that somebody can think at like a 30,000 foot view and then get into the detail. So I'd be saying, and I might throw out an idea at like really vague idea, and I'd want them to be able to plan down into the detail, for example, for a project manager kind of thing, for a project manager. So knowing the kind of questions that you can ask to understand how people operate. So are you like a big picture thinker, or do you need to be in the detail? You would obviously put it in kinds of, tell me about a project. What kind of information do you need to have from me to be able to create a plan? Do you need just like the vague idea, or do you need the detail of that? So having those kind of questions when you're interviewing, if you haven't got those behavioural assessments, can always be dead useful as well.
Yeah. And also, simple, but I like to keep things, being neurodiverse, I like to be to the point, but I like to keep things, quite simple as well. So it's not overpowering, it's not overwhelming, but it's, kind of straight to the point as well. And I think, something like, what do you need to be really successful within your role from all angles?
Yeah. What tool sets do you need?
Management process, what tools would you, and then also on the flip side, what has been your biggest failures, and how are you going to take out, how are you going to make that a lesson, and how are you going to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yeah. There's another one you can add in there, Lauren, as well, in terms of how do you like to be managed? And what do you need from me?
I do ask that. Yeah.
For you? That's a key question. What do you need from me to make it happen? And remove the blockers as well. So people like disagree with others, or they might not have what they need. With that, in a management role, you're there to remove those blockers.
Absolutely. Definitely a neurodiverse friendly environment that we're talking about here, Michelle. So thank you very much for that.
So I'm not friendly. It's just like humans, isn't it? I think of the trait of expecting people to be a certain way, and it's now just everybody's an individual, and you have to understand that person. Otherwise, you don't know what you're going to get right.
And it's communication as well. Communication is key, and it's investment. You can power your workforce with the most shiniest tools and the greatest thing, but without communication and without coming down to them on their level and being, simple but effective with your communication. Yes, we need process, but we also need something that is user friendly, even from tech perspectives and stuff like that. We need stuff that's we can 1-2 clicks we're there, 1-2 clicks we're at another next stage.
Efficiency.
We need efficiency within a workforce. We absolutely do. So I'll move on to the next question before I start ranting and being totally, a good example of neurodiversity myself. So the next question, if you could fix one major challenge MSPs are face when it comes to retaining great talent, neurodiverse talent, what would it be, Michelle?
You've answered it already. It's communication. It's all about those relationships and communication. And again, understanding what's important to an individual, because if you know what's important to them and you deliver on that. So it's not always money. It could be that they need flexible working. It could be that they need holiday time. It could be that they want training. Whatever it is, understand that and deliver on that. Budget related, of course. So as long as it's in budget, you can't like buy them a yacht or something, obviously. And then the communication as well, and have a chat and do like things like engagement surveys and what rewards do they want as a team, rather than forcing some kind of like star of the month shenanigans on it. But yeah, there's ways of doing things which suit them as a team.
I think also as well, I think, as we get bigger into technology, we live in a really digital world now, hybrid working, COVID completely changed dynamics. And I also think that, team building exercises,
that's the worst nightmare.
Work hard, play hard. I do believe in that. I absolutely do. I think, summer socials, I think, getting to know your other employees. But that's, again, it depends what type of, if you're just a smaller UK business, and I do think that's necessary. But if you're an international business, it does make it, harder and harder. But, if you are, I think there's something else like a knowledge base, session that you could all do, virtually, everybody, within, you could do a knowledge base sharing, session.
Yeah, it could be belief systems or anything. But again, I think it's really interesting that you would find that really fun. And of course, this is where, sorry, Lauren, the fluffy HR aspect comes in of love everybody and let's all have a get together, versus a tech person whose idea of like, don't want to go out, don't want to speak to people, and we're introverted. So again, you've got that whole difference in personality. So the tech teams, and we need to do something as a team. We need to build that team relationship. How do we do this? You could find it's like down to competition of how many tickets can people close, and have a bit of a pizza and let's blitz these tickets and have some camaraderie and do it that way, rather than a night out in a pub where everybody feels uncomfortable and is trying to hide from the greater population. I was going to say the greater population, but yeah. But again, it's understanding differences, isn't it?
And I think you can only... So I think really what we're saying, Michelle, is understand the differences, put your human element in, invest in being more human, then wonder what you do next.
Yes. Yeah.
To bring,
to improve it. Yeah.
To bring workforce together, and it might be, it could be that ticketing, could be that ticketing scenario that you just mentioned, because I think that could be quite powerful. And then everybody at the end, you get a group, as a division, like as a team, you get a pizza, you take a photo, you upload it, you do something socially with it.
Yep. Or it could be like office chair racing across the office. Those kind of things can be fun. But but having forced socialization. Show your face, disappear. It'll be over in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Definitely happens.
I've been laughing my head off to you guys. It's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had to say, they carry on. I was just going to sit here nodding away.
Okay.
You made us jump then, Gareth. We forgot you was in the room. Well, I was sitting there in the background, but I wanted to let you get on. But look, Lauren, I'm famously neurodiverse as well, and I totally get it. Michelle, I can't stand small talk. I just, so going to a pub, and I can't think of anything worse. Yeah. Around, so how was your breakfast? No, and so I love it. So yeah, office chair races. I've done that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen that. That is pretty good. Yeah, it is.
We've got no health and safety in the room. It's fine. We're good.
Go. Yeah.
I've got one last question, Michelle. Then, so obviously, your mission involves helping hundreds and thousands of people in MSPs. So what is it about people that drives your passion?
I'm very IT and MSP focused, right? So, and I am sick and tired of seeing IT and MSP people being set up for failure and struggling and all the rest of it. So when it comes to anything service, I just want to help. Do you know what I mean? Just want to see people succeed, but not everybody, only IT people. Sorry, guys.
That's fair enough. Well, this is a tech podcast.
Pretty much hit it nail on the head, I think, there. But yeah.
So yeah, no, it's
you, Lauren, obviously by extending that out because you're helping tech people, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Lauren always said to me from the get-go that her mission is getting the right IT tech person in the right job. And the trouble is, it's kind of like a two-parted cell. It's they've got to fit the hole that you put them in, but they've also got to be able to enjoy it long term. And if it doesn't drive their get their juices going consistently, they'll just end up disintegrating. And I've seen that happen. You know,
it's a two-way thing, right? It's not all employee. It used to be back in the day that the employer would hold all the cards. Not now. It's a two-way street. Everybody's got to be happy, and it's got to be win-win all the way around. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that that I pride myself on, and what I like to do different, what I like to do different, but should I say what I'm really passionate about as part of my process is one, the behavioural side, because I think it really does, it digs. Yeah, it is. It is fascinating. And, before you get to interview somebody, you get to know that person and really what they're like, outside of work, because it does play a part in how they, how they succeed in a job at the end of the day, because their personal traits will somehow slide into their, professional traits.
You know what we've missed there, don't you, Lauren, by the way, is values and how values align, because they've got to align for both the candidate and the employer as well.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's and what I like to do, and the reason why I say that then is because, for me, I am more of a, retained, a retained talent acquisition specialist, and founder of Key Global Recruitment. And when I say retained, I say that, and I mean that by, the way that I do things with clients. So the amount of detail that I like to get from a client, how much I like to understand a client, their culture, their people, what type of person do you think you're missing within your team at the moment? What are you trying to fix? What quality of a person are you trying to fix? Because the type of person, they can have the most amazing experience, but if that person doesn't align behaviorally or culturally to your organization, they are not going to work.
Yeah, I hear you.
It is as simple as that. So what I like to do, working in a contingent way for me, yes, I do it. It's a service that I do. I can do a simple, CV vending type of service. I can do a low search and all of that. But it's not the way that I really like to work, Michelle, because I'm neurodiverse. So I have to have adjustments, and being neurodiverse, I have to become very detailed, at what I do. Big thinking, creative mindset. So for me, as a person being neurodiverse and working in that way, that then passes on when I'm working with clients. And I like to work with clients in that very detailed way. And the benefit of that is then that as I do that, I come up with a rigorous, kind of process and a detailed process where I, really get down to not just skills, but person and behavioural levels and things like that. And then, I feel more confident that the people that I'm putting in don't just align with their skills, experience, qualifications, all the rest of it. They actually align with the behavioural side of the business that we're working with. And I think you know, understanding your people, what empowers them, what drives them,
Yes.
you know, outside of work as well as inside of work, makes a massive difference to your, you know, to your recruitment retention.
Well, look, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking part today, Michelle. It was very kind of you to be here, and Lauren, as ever, great questioning and amazing conversation. But this is the part, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, where I'm going to talk a little bit about Key Global Recruitment. If you can see the line underneath it and the QR code in the corner, and you want to find out more about what Lauren and her team can do for you, please don't hesitate to scan it. She welcomes a discussion, and then you can talk still further about her very strong values at trying to find the right people for the right job. But before I go, thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Lauren. And to all you watching out there, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and who knows, you might catch the moon. Look after that mental health. Until next time, goodbye.
Thank you.
We're here to build your dream team. Building futures, that's our theme. Key Tech Talks will show the way. With Key Global, spread your wings.